Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today's topic is why instance. I wanted to talk about this for a long time, and but a while ago I was in the middle. I stopped because I was thinking if I talk about it, how can anybody understand what I'm talking about? So that's my concern. So I continued with this explanation of the history, the historical figures, and hopefully, after I explained or gave some details about how I understand them and how I see the merits in their philosophy, and the people will start to understand um, my instancology and absolutology. That's my hope. Last time I talked about the journey of the absolute. I made a summary and uh, in line with talking about explaining about Hegel's thought, because from a Fichte and he put forward the advancement of consciousness, this great idea. And, of course, and this is indebted to Aristotle, teleological thoughts, everything. And Hegel, Hegel put it systematically as a circle moving forward. That is a very important idea. And uh, why it's important? Because it is it's the truth. It is what religious people suspected what God, they call it God did, and what the creationism, what is the design, and on that aspect, and from the philosophical point of view, and the way how we see it as the absolute. So the whole journey, uh, I summarize it into a circle. Each different stage is just an embodiment of the absolute. It started from the relative, create something that is our world. In science and in physics, they call it a Big Bang or universe or whatever. It has duration, it has limit, it will end one day because anything, if it's born, it will die one day, right? Is that the logical? So is this relative world, or is something? Okay, so something is here, and the circle goes on with religion first said, God creates the world. Speaking of that, have you noticed that when each culture having its religion or started with multiple gods, then they come down to a single god. See, it's a common phenomenon. Why? It has a reason. That is how philosophy was born. Started from one thing, like Phyllis, the water, and Examine, the air, and Simander, the air, the 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 earth. So you see the sequence, starting from one thing, explaining everything. And also I noticed another phenomenon, by the way. In the West, the two big religions, Christianity and the Islam, the religion, and the culture or the religion started with a person as a messenger, basically, like uh, Jesus Christ, like Muhammad, right? They are messengers. They said they pass words from God and to other people, right? See the relationship? But if we go to the East, and what is Buddha? By the way, Buddha comes from the multiplicity of gods, and eventually it comes Buddha. Buddha is to Indian people is God, and also uh, nowadays in China there's something called a Falun Gong. The guy claims himself to be God too. They don't say they are messengers; they say they are God. You see the difference? All right. Of course, in the a long history in the past, in China, there was no religion or serious religion. They just trusted some saints, and that's a sign of not pursuing the absolute to me. But anyway, that's some side topic. All right, let me continue with the circle thing. All right, okay. So from pre-Socratic philosophers, they have one thing, one element as the foundation of our world. Then come to the trio of giants, Plato, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. They made a Socratic switch and to turn into how questions, and from why to how, and they continue the tradition of explaining the world with one thing and with the foundation. Okay, that we can see as the embodiment of the absolute, as a form in Plato, as reality in uh, Aristotle, as ethics or virtue in Socrates. All right. Then come to the major figures. I only mentioned the major ones. To the Middle Ages, another three, and Augustine regard absolute as a universal God. Uh, Anselm regarded as perfection in the mind, and to Aquinas as the God, the existence of God. They all regarded that's all representation of the absolute. Then we come to the modern time in Descartes, and that is perfection as God, and in later on in Spinoza, and as a deductive reasoning, God is a definition. From there, go on to deductive using deductive method to get the world, all the theorems. Okay, and then we come to the German idealism, or if you can say, from the other side, that is a semantic side, or you can say Kierkegaard and Nietzsche or Schopenhauer. They regarded the meaning, the consciousness, the life as philosophy too. It's reasonable, all right? On this side of reasoning or rationale, okay, the British side, the three John Locke, and Berkeley, and David Hume, till the German idealism, uh, Kant and Fichte, Schelling and Hegel. They all go like this. God embodied, absolute embodied as a reasoning, as self-consciousness, as nature, eventually landed in Hegel as reason. Okay? Oh, sorry. So that's basically what it is. Uh, I think we can say on the semantic part, the absolute embodied as life in Kierkegaard, and embodied as will in Schopenhauer. We can see that way too. Okay. Then if we keep going and we come to the analytical trend of philosophy, and also the existential part of philosophy that's inherited from Kant and Hegel, the phenomenology part. And for the existential part, like Husserl, it is the experience or pure experience or common experience. Husserl abstracted the pure part of experience and grab the common feature of experience and make it objective and make it find the objective thing in human understanding. All right, that's his contribution. For Heidegger, it is the last existence. It is something to tie up back to Parmenides. That's rounding up the circle. All right, and that's how philosophy, to me, has come to end. All right. Then how to express this? We go to Wittgenstein language. So the language, you better stop, and because you cannot explain the world anymore. Okay. For whatever you can say is logical, the rational, the mathematics. Anything else beyond that, you cannot say clearly. So you better stop. So that's basically round up this whole thing of philosophy. And at this juncture, at this point, and that is since that time, we have some from literary part, like structuralism and modernism, postmodernism, like part of the philosophy, part of literature, Derrida, French philosopher Derrida. And he basically analyzed language. That is basically the job of Wittgenstein, so analytic philosophy, and from that side. And he just made some supplementary work from literary part to add it to this contribution of the language analysis. That's what I see it. All right, and so at this time, if philosophy has done everything, and we heard the complaints for the past 50 years, half a century, because science has advanced so dramatically, so vastly, and so unbelievably, and so a lot of scientists started to ridicule the philosophers or ridicule the philosophy, saying you are dying, you have no contribution for whatever, no major system out, you cannot provide as an upstream field of academia, and you cannot provide worldview, new worldview. You cannot provide methodology. Why do you still live or something, or live today? And what's use of you? It's a sort of like a serious charge. All right. So according to Stephen Hawking, and the science has advanced to such advancement, and nowadays there's a lot of debate about that too. And some people from Arizona University, they said a lot about this thing, and they all ask this question, grab the philosopher's point, Why there's something rather than nothing. They try to answer that. See, that's a physicist, that's a scientist. They try to step out of their territory and intrude into philosophy field to answer the questions, the big questions. And according to, well, you cannot really blame them for doing that because as your analytical philosophers say, we don't care about anything else, or we don't have anything else rather than language analysis. So they raise the big questions. You forgot the big questions will do it for you, right? Because people still ask are still asking the four great questions since ancient time, right? And that's a fact. Where are we? What is this world? Why we are here? How do we conduct ourselves? Things like that, questions like that. No matter what you say, your language analyst, your linguist say, it doesn't matter. All right. The the science has many aspects of achievements in uh, consciousness. So many people ask questions, debates about it, mostly from the uh, medical or biology field and neuron scientists. They try to answer the question, what is consciousness? And from the field of cosmology, and they advanced a lot of things, and multi-universe, the Big Bang, the black hole, the God particle, things like that, right? And like dark dark energy, dark matter, what it is. So many new things coming out, and also from the philosophy field, we have the argument, the controversy of Darwinism, the evolution versus creation, because as more study landed on biology, and as we know more about DNA, RNA, and some philosophers started to wonder how can just by probability or just by chance can the DNA was structured so precisely, so delicately. That's impossible. And how the structure of the eye, human eye, can be like it is now. If it's not by design, if it's only by chance, as uh, your philosopher says so far, there's really no way to be like that. Yeah, actually, we can calculate that. If it's by probability, how long it takes, probably it's more than the duration of the Big Bang, so it's impossible. So some converts of philosophers to the creationist part, and I can see that from the debates. So my point is, at this time, we have all the questions related together. Where does the free will come from? What's the future of artificial intelligence? Can it beat human being one day? Now it's already the IBM's Deep Blue can beat the champion of the chess, right? Can be international champion. We know that. So all the questions related that make philosophy fall into a crisis because philosophy at the moment didn't say anything new and didn't have any system, didn't cannot provide any new worldview and methodology. So we cannot really blame other people for that, and they will blame us for whatever we do, and they say you failed in your profession to do that. All right. So the major crisis occurred at this time. All right. That's our problem. All right. So we cannot blame them for that. If we cannot think something to have a breakthrough from this current situation, we will die. The philosophy will die. No question about that. No need for philosophy anymore. All right, maybe as a relic, as a part of archaeology thing in the past, like we have tons of it, like astronomy or something like that. And there's many fields which is past the value and it's no longer useful anymore. And people doesn't depend it entirely, right? And maybe like Newtonian physics. And we have relativity now theory, we have quantum mechanics. We still use Newtonian physics, but it's to put it to a lesser role of importance. Okay, that is the case. Maybe philosophy will suffer that fate, and if we don't do something about it, that's a problem. All right, at this time, actually, if you look closer and look in detail about every subject, every field, and every culture at this time, you can feel there's something, right? When I thought about this idea of instancology and absolutology, Einstein theory, seeing the relativity, and it really means a lot to me because I take it as relativity is a physics term, physical term. All right, it's a theory. But philosophically, if you interpret it, it's the essence of our world. That's what I take. Think about that. But how can you develop something out of it? It still has a long way to go. All right, relative from relative. If you break through this barrier or boundary, you have to go to absolute. But what is absolute? That is a question, right? I mentioned, and in forming the theory of the thinking, okay, let me go down a little bit. I think I probably already went ahead of myself to some extent. If you think about that, and how did you find what is absolute? And at first, from my own experience, it's first because of the thinking paradox, and I think I explained that in the past. If you look back some videos, you will have how I suffered. It's unbelievable. It suffered that phase of discovering the thinking paradox thing. All right. From that, I reached the discovery of the absolute. To put it simply, it's like that. It's in other words, it's simply like this. If you wake up at 2 o'clock at night and ask yourself when you close eyes, everything is dark. Maybe your wife or your kids are sleeping beside you and nobody makes a sound. Ask yourself, is this my first thought? Or did I realize my first thought? What happened before this my first thought? In other words, before I'm consciousness of it. Is there something? We don't know because you are not conscious of it before you wake up. When you wake up, you are conscious of something, but you immediately conscious is, I woke up. But you are sure you have the moment before you are conscious of your waking up. What is that? That, to me, is the absolute. The absolute nature or the property of your brain from the two halves, left half and the right half, is the essence, the nature of the entire absolute. Our brain has a property of absolute, a pair property called consciousness and thinking. That is just part of the bigger or omnipresent or whatever you say. Is absolute. That absolute creates relative. That means that absolute is the same in property as the double one in your brain. That gives you the first object of consciousness. That is, I wake up. You didn't even have the time to tell yourself, okay, I know I wake up. You don't have this yet, but you wake up is the first one. But before you wake up, that is another one. That is called the absolute. That absolute doesn't even create your local consciousness, the object of your local consciousness yet. So that is the idea. Think about this. If you understand this, and you get absolute. What absolute? Why I say my instancology and absolutology is the Copernicus revolution in the studying of ontology. Just as Kant's Copernicus revolution in epistemology, from inside to outside, to go to outside. And this one is to study metaphysics from inside, go outside. It's the same idea. It's the same process, all right? From inner to outer. That's a process. Okay? Let me continue. And now I think I reached the second one. What is an instance? Instance, I wanted to talk about this for a long time. Actually, instance versus all the major points by past philosophers, it's a summary of them, or it's a package of the past major philosophical points, like a being, form, reality, will, or ideas, names, whatever there. It's a summary. It's like a culmination, like Hegel's thinking, his system did at that time. But this one is bigger because it's cut to the root of the relative. Relative is everything. Without relative, we don't even exist. It's just like saying without Big Bang, there's no time. There's no us, of course, no life. So relative is philosophically, to realize the relative part is philosophically recognize the truth, the fundamental truth of the questions we ask. To me, it's a consciousness, your local consciousness is joined, comes back and rejoins the absolute in a way, like a drop of water goes back to ocean, to the sea, to be the same. There's no difference. It's like that. So think about this point. That is a very important one. If you understand this, you'll probably get a big chunk of the instancology and absolutology. That's what I see. So, for instance, let's come back to the instance thing. Instance, in essence, is the relative. The relative is the instance. That's a feature of it. That's the essence of it. And the instance actually was divided into two parts. That is, one is a micro world, one is a macro world. All right? In two worlds. We put part of the thing into the macro world, another part to macro world. In the latter, when things come to this macro world, there's a pair of property called, I should say, added pair of property called space and time, and even more called psychology. That's from human point of view. All right. So 3 more dimensions are added to the macro world, and it also inherited from the micro world, MICRO, 2 more dimensions. That is mathematics and logic. In that one, it already has it. And so God here eventually come to 5 dimensions in this world. That's what I see. So to define each world is to find out the relationship of it and to see how they act to each other and how they are related. All right, that's in future topics lessons. I'll talk about that. All right. Now I want to come to the historical inheritance of the absolutology and instancology from the history of philosophy. All right. This theory benefit a lot from past philosophers' points. A few are very obvious one, and I just on the top of my head I'll mention Parmenides' thought, being, the world, Plato's forms, and Peter Abelard's names, and of course later on there's many more. And so I want to say they are really related. It's a summarization. It's a lot of people's work. And without their ideas, really there's no the summary of instance covering, gathering everybody's stuff put into one instance. All right. For example, Plato's form. Form implies an instance of reality. When Plato says the blue jean, the blue of the blue jean joins the blueness of blue form. The blue jean, you can regard it as an instance of it, right? And also in the Middle Ages, in Abelard's time, there's a discussion of individuals and or particulars versus universals or abstract. There's a lot of big discussion of that. That contribute to this part too. All right. So we can say, in summary, the past history of philosophy is everything worth its own value and will be inherited in the summary of Instancology and absolutology. Because without it, their theory will be empty. And when you summarize it, when you gather all the valuable stuff left over from history, you also need to make up for those that is missing link. And that is how it comes out to be like it now. That is the case. All right. So for this one, I only want to give you a basic summary of what I'm thinking, and I want you to be to understand the importance of the absolute part, that is study of the absolute in this, I call it journey. The Hegel's one is a small one from hidden to nature to consciousness, a round trip there, maybe locally or in neighborhood of whatever at that time they faced. And in Instancology and absolutology is a bigger circle of this, the journey of the absolute itself. It's no longer the word absolute used as an adjective or modifier to other things like absolute nature, absolute ideas, or absolute self, or absolute existence, or God, or something. It's not that. It's absolute. It's self. Okay, so that is the idea. And each of the two worlds in Instancology will be explained and later when into details, of course. And so, but the important thing is you understand the relationship of the relative versus the absolute, especially the idea of the absolute. If you get that one, that's you are half already. You got at least half of it already, right? That's very important. Okay, I hope, and by explaining this way, you understand. After we pass Hegel, pass many important philosophers, you will feel you have some understanding of this theory. Okay, I'll say more in future. Thank you very much.